This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. Living Journey is looking at the fifth concept of the human prism. Let me explain this a little bit. That's a bit of a mouthful when you hear it the first time. My name is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I am your voice of Respectonomics. We run two parallel platforms, Living Economics and Living Journey. And Living Journey is designed to bring together the threads in our lives to see where our journey is and where it can take us and what we can do to maybe to slow down the train or maybe to accelerate the train, but various ways of looking at it. And this particular phase of what we're looking at is looking at the prism of life. Now, let me explain what I mean by the prism of life. The prism of life, it parallels the idea that when you put light and pass light through a prism, it divides itself out into these different colors. It's the sort of concept of the rainbow. And what you get is when you put the light through the prism, you end up with this combination of colors that goes under the acronym of Roy-Gabiv. This you may have seen when you were in physics schools and whatever lessons, lectures. And Roy-Gabiv stands for red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Those colors actually have different wavelengths, and that's why they come out differently. And we don't have to get into the physics and the chemistry and so on. But I will put one thing to you, and that is that if one color disappears, if one color is taken out of the mix, so we take out the green, for example, actually the whole prism collapses. So when we're looking at this combination, this collaboration of colors, we're doing so also in terms of our own lives. And to each one of these colors, we have ascribed one of the qualities, one of the ingredients in living, which I will go through with you now. We're going through the R, the red stands for respect. The O stands for openness. The Y, the yellow, stands for you. Green, G, stands for grow. B stands for balance. I stands for identity. And V stands for victory. So you've got respect, openness, you, grow, balance, identity, and victory. These are the qualities that when light is pushed through or flown through your prism, you, the individual human being, these are the colors that we want to, and the attributes that we want to catch, we want to build on, and we want to secure. I think it's important to come out with one understanding of this metaphor, that you may be the prism, and maybe, I believe, Respectonomics is looking at these different colors and giving them an explanation and a confirmation. That's fine. But each of us has to look at what is the source of that light that comes into our lives that allows these attributes to develop. And that source of your light is extraordinarily personal. I'm not making that determination. I'm merely pointing out that when we allow a certain light into our lives, it will distribute amongst these qualities. Where that light comes from is your own personal decision. It may be the result of conversations with your partner. It might be, quite candidly, looking in the mirror. There can be different ways in which light is reflected into our lives, but it's worth stopping for a moment and thinking, what is the source of that light and how do I let it flow into my life? And when I do let it flow into my life, let's take a look at these attributes of respect and openness, the you, the grow, the balance, the identity, and the victory. Now, this one is this is the sixth comment or sixth platform under the heading of the living journey and looking at the prism. And that means that we're going to be looking at identity. Now, identity these days has become horrifically suppressed and suffused. What I mean by that is the idea of one's own personal identity has become more and more difficult to express because of anything ranging from regulatory requirements through to the onslaught of technology and the bigness of things that you feel that you're just not being heard. And when you're not being heard and nobody cares about you and you don't think you can make a difference, when you start getting into that kind of railway track, that is when you start losing identity. The critical issue is that one's identity is, in fact, its own prism. It is that relationship that you have with yourself. And we have 5 questions that you are allowed to ask, that you are being enabled to ask. Respectonomics is putting in front of you your identity. I'm not asking you to go and stand on the top of Mount Everest and yell, "My name is." Well, you could do that. And then maybe sometimes we should just stand out there in the courtyard and yell, "My name is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley." Yell it out there because that is in fact part of your nameplate, is part of your identity. It is in part of a introduction of you to the community. You can do that to some extent, but it may not be very lasting just standing on the mountaintop. What we want to do then is to look at these 5 questions that I would like to put in front of each of us. I put them in front of me and put them in front of all of us, and we can exchange ideas on this. And if you are hearing this and you want to pursue it further, by all means, jeremy@respectonomics.com. Jeremy@respectonomics.com. That's my email address. And on top of that, if you would like to hold workshops or meetings or presentations, gatherings, videoed, real, in person, we can talk about those possibilities. So let's look at, I want to identify myself. I want to restore. I want to restate. I want to regain my identity. I'm entitled to that. I have an identity as a human being. I am who I am. Let's have a look at who I am. And the first question is, who am I? And who am I? Let me give you something we're going to be pursuing in future presentations in much more detail. But the who am I, when I stop in the tracks and I can look in the mirror, I can stand in the subway, I can go anywhere I want to ask this question, who am I? And I have to come back with one concording response. I have to. And that is, I am made up of 3 parts. I am a triad. I am made up of a body. That's the one that's doing the speaking. I'm made up of a mind. That's the one that processes the thinking. And I'm made up of a spirit or a soul that is exactly and inclusively, exclusively mine. It's not yours, it's mine. I can share my body. I can share my mind. My soul belongs to me. So when I ask, who am I can crucially say, I am made up of the body and the mind and the soul. And I owe it in a world of disunity to provide the unity of thought, to bring this collectively together, that these are the 3 that make up this triad of the human being, that these are the triunal concepts or realities of a human being. This is in the computer world, we talk about the hardware, the computer that you sit in front of and all that. You've got the hardware, you've got the software. The hardware is the machinery, the software is the processing stuff. And then you've got the operating system. Let me ask you one question. If these 3 are not working together, then of what value is that technology? And the answer is absolutely squat, none whatever. So, who am I? I am made up of this triad of body, mind, and soul. The 3 need to work together. The 3 are contingent. The 3 are responsible to one another. They undermine each other. They overmind each other. They work very well together. And when you do that, the Romans used to have this wonderful way of running the empire through 3 emperors at the same time, so they weren't just relying on one individual. And they called it a triumvirate. And we can be that triumvirate when I let these 3, not let, when I encourage these 3 parts of me to work effectively together. The next question is, we talked about who am I? The next question is, where am I? And that's in the whole sort of corridor of life. And we quite often sort of think, oh, well, tomorrow's another day. And, then another month goes by. And next thing we know, 10 years have gone by. It is a perfectly reasonable question. Where am I? You can think of it chronologically in terms of your last birthday or even your birthday now. You can think of where am I in terms of age. You can think of where am I physically. You can think of where am I spiritually, where am I mentally, where am I in my career. Just where am I? To ask yourself, where am I? There's no judgment. It's just a question. We've asked earlier, who am I? Now we're asking, where am I? Now I've come to the next one, which is, what am I? Well, I'm a human being, and we've already talked about this triumvirate, this triunal nature of us as well. But I'd like to show you something else, and that is that as a human being, although of course, I'm made up for this body, mind, and spirit, I'm also a petri dish. You know those petri dishes where you put things in to see how they're going to react with one another and how, whether there's going to be some growth of a bacteria or not, or something else is going to take it out, or if it's toxic or whatever. But whatever that is, human beings are a petri dish. We are almost an experiment. Why not look at yourself as an experiment and say, what if I did move parts of me around? So I am a petri dish. But what have I got in my petri dish? And I have got three things that need to be extraordinarily emphasized. The first one is I have dignity. Secondly, I have capacity. And thirdly, I have value. That is my petri dish. It's your petri dish. It's the human being petri dish that we can gather together dignity, capacity, and value. Because when you bring those three together, you as a human being need to be dignified, but you need dignity of self, of representing yourself, of feeling about yourself, so that you can express dignity in other people's lives. You need capacity. You never want to think, oh, I'm at the end of the road. No, you're not. No, I'm not. We all have capacity. We all have potential. We can grow. And we have value. Multiply out dignity and potential, and you end up with value. We are that value to other human beings, of course, to ourselves as well. But what a wonderful combination of dignity, capacity, and value. And they're all within my orbit, all within my sense of influence and control. Now, the next question is, when am I? We've talked about who am I, where am I, what am I, when am I? And I'll give you one answer. Now, N-O-W. Now is when I am. And that's a very important thing because in all of our endeavors in life, how many of us come up with an idea, come up with something we want to do? It might be in the family, it might be at work, it might be in the community. Take your pick. And it's always that, not always, it's often a sense of, I will get round to it. And the answer is no. The answer is now. It affects respectonomics. Respectonomics is defined by being now. It is a necessary ingredient to restore, to restate dignity. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, well, that would be all right, but actually to do it today. So we are, when I say, when am I? The answer is now. And I think if we had on all of our desks and our, where we in our bathrooms and any other word, you could actually just put up the word now. Just have it there and just say, yes, it is now. So we've talked about who am I, where am I, what am I, when am I? And the answer is now. And then why am I? Now, why am I is a question that we sometimes ask at 3 o'clock in the morning. Why am I? Why am I this individual? Why am I this human being? Yes, I can say I had parents and all those things, and I was born and bred, and that's how I came to be who I am. And that's fine too. You can give all the biology you want. But if you said to somebody, what are you doing? And they gave you the answer and said, well, I'm in apprenticeship. Oh, you'd say, okay. Another one might say, I'm in a relationship. Another one might say, I'm in fellowship. Another one might say, I'm in spectatorship. And those are all good answers. But what about this answer? Why am I? I am in serviceship. Serviceship is a technical expression. It deals with a combination of education, training, on the job, basically, and you get paid as you're educated, as you're on the job. So you could be apprenticing in a sense. But what it comes down to is this concept of serviceship is the reality of not only serving others, but also benefiting through that concept or the reality of service of educating not only oneself but others. But when we ingest this idea that we are servants and that we are going to become educated in the process, that is probably the finest answer of why am I? That I'm in the business, the world building business, the societal, the civilization of why am I? Because I'm in the business of serving. And when human beings get into the understanding of serving another human being, that is when we can look at prosperity in its full iconic value and recognize it in terms of satisfaction, a peacefulness within oneself, and a deep satisfaction. So, why am I? I am to serve. Who am I? I am made up of mind and body and spirit. Where am I? I'm here at this point. What am I? I am this combination of dignity, potential, dignity, capacity, and value. When am I? Now. And why am I? To serve. Let's all bring ourselves into this formula, this compendium, and bring ourselves forward so that we can say, my identity is so framed because I understand myself and I'm allowing myself, my ingredients, my qualifications to be of value and to be of service to another human being. When we do that, we will create a collective prosperity that one might even hazard the guess that civilization has never seen before, all under the heading of identity, which is that one color that came out of that prism. It came out of respect and openness and the you, the grow, the balance, the identity we just said, and the victory. And our next presentation will be on what happens and how we declaim this victory when we bring these other colors all to the table to create this brilliant and miraculous rainbow. Thank you so much for listening. Please feel very comfortable to respond and to get back with ideas and thoughts, not only in terms of feedback, but also in terms of where we can be physically available for presentations and workshops, speeches, and the like. We have a great bastion of information behind us of people dedicated to this idea of respectonomics, which is to restore, restate, recover the dignity of the human being. Thank you so much for listening.